in a percussion class. Hello, Global Theater. My name is Gerry Fialka. Today's October 8, 2025. I want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast, I'm Probably Wrong About Everything. I want to welcome today's guest, Payton MacDonald. Where are you calling from?
I'm in Wayne, New Jersey.
How cool is that? First question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
Wow. The best thing, man, there's so many, but I would definitely put in a strong vote for spending some time doing something you love every day.
Yeah. Yep. What's your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
Yeah, I like to read because I like to have time, and I like to take time and have time. But I also really enjoy human interactions, especially as our lives have become more and more screen oriented. Whenever possible, I like to meet with people in person.
Yeah. Funny thing is, pre-COVID, I did all these 1,000 interviews over 40 years, all live. Now they're way better, and people don't want to hear that because we're only concentrating on our heads in a little hand, and we're more present than if you were here in my room or I was in your room. Yeah. So I know it is a funny paradox to that. Yeah. And human interaction is the answer I love to hear the most. People like direct experience, live. But you said read first. Did you become a reader, one, because your parents told you, they did it as an example, or on your own?
I think more the last two. My parents were always readers. There were always books in the house, lots and lots of books. I mean, big stacks of books. And my father read voraciously. He read history, he read politics, he read a lot of science fiction, he read a lot of science. He was a nuclear engineer, so he was interested in science. My mom was an English teacher, and she had been through all the classics, of course, but she was more interested in kind of pop literature as a reading. But there were always books everywhere, and I started reading very, very young. They read to me. I don't even remember when I started reading, but I know by the time I was, 8 or 9 years old, I was reading full-length novels by popular artists, plus whatever was in school. And then in high school is when I got into Russian literature and started reading poetry and American literature, and it's just never stopped. So yeah, I really love reading.
Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
You ask really interesting questions. I appreciate that. Thank you. Well, why do we collect or gather information? Well, I think perhaps we have to make sense of things, and we have to figure out how to navigate our lives, both in kind of short-term and long-term perspectives. And I think, most people are pretty thoughtful and considerate, not all, but most. And, I think having information helps us with that navigation, perhaps.
Is this need or want to collect information more innate or more invented?
That's a good question. I don't know. It may be partly culturally specific. There may be some cultures that are more interested in information as a way of being and navigating and also cataloging in a way and remembering, and other cultures that may be less important to them. So I'm not sure, honestly.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of this important writer who's on the radio, and she said, I grew up in the Caribbean, and my mother never learned how to read, but she knew what to do when a tsunami hit because of one of the songs they sang.
Oh, interesting.
So is song information? Well, yeah, in our culture, we would say, yeah, that's information. In her culture, that might not have been. But do you Really good, Payton. I appreciate your concise and articulate. Do thoughts create emotions?
Well, I don't know about create. I can only perhaps respond with my own experience, but I will say thoughts. So maybe create is, I was going to say they're certainly connected. Yeah, I would actually, the more I'm thinking about this, I would say, at least in my experience, thoughts do create emotions. But they're so intertwined. That's the thing. Like, what is anxiety for me? If I'm talking about, let's say we're talking about anxiety is a very physical manifestation. It's a kind of actual, I remember a period about 4 years ago, one of my kids, my son, was very, very sick. And my wife and I it was a very difficult time for us. And I remember the feeling, that phrase I'd heard all my life, you feel it in your gut. That's a phrase we all hear, at least in this country. I had heard that phrase my whole life, but I didn't really understand that phrase until my son was so sick. And I was, for the first time in my life, struggling with anxiety. And the anxiety was in my gut. Like, it was this feeling, just tremendously difficult and terrible feeling. But it was also very much intertwined with the thoughts in my mind about his illness and how we were going to get through it and whether it was going to get resolved or not. So whether the thoughts created the anxiety, I'm not sure. They probably did. Yeah, they probably did. But they were also very much like spinning around together and completely intertwined.
Really good, because see, it's me and you versus the wording on the questions. We're here to psychoanalyze how I've chosen to word the question. So I liked your first impulse was, I don't know about that word create. So, that someone would go thoughts and emotions. Well, what's the verb there? So yeah, if you had to go back to that original, what was the hunchy kind of word you were going to maybe say to replace create? If you could. If not, it's just like I'm forced stories, anecdotes, and tangents. You don't have to answer the question. And I welcome when people go, well, let me reword your question. Let me change that word. I'm for that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you were going to go back a moment, was there a word that was on the tip of your tongue you were going to say? You go, I don't know about create. And then, yeah.
Well, I don't know. I guess because create for me had a feeling of this thing makes this thing, whereas I guess I was seeing it not as a kind of A and then B, but rather, as I was saying earlier, they're kind of spinning together. It's like electrons moving around a nucleus of some, So I'm not sure what the word would that be, but they're somehow connected. They're somehow on a kind of spectrum. They're somehow related to each other.
Yeah. No, they be people. Some of my early questions is that more this or more that. Well, of course it's both, and it depends. But this one woman said the word more doesn't function in your question because I'm trying to get you to commit on like false binaries. They go, I'm not into false binaries. It's like, of course, if they're both the same. So here's the next one. Fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I
experience it.
Yeah. So McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I say it. Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I write it. Can humans think without language?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of my relationship to the world is, despite what I said about reading, it's also very physical in a way. That's why as a musician, I've always continued to practice my instruments, because I like playing music. I like feeling music. I like physically having my body involved with it. And and that's when I learn things, I generally just start doing them rather than read about how to do them. For me, and I used to feel a little weird about that, perhaps because I'm in academia, which is very much oriented towards a lot of times, building this proper scaffolding of intellectual support towards something. But I for me, life is kind of experiential. So I'm not sure I do know what I think about something until I'm actually involved with it in a way.
Yeah. Chomsky says language is not just words. It's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. Payton, what do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
Well, I think that's partly why I'm a musician. I mean, the music for me has always been a modality of communication, and it's sometimes something that's beyond language.
Yeah.
So I think there's that, and I think immerse my love and of the arts in general. I mean, visual art is certainly that. I mean, and you, I'm sure you're familiar with that adage. I can't remember who you probably know who originally said it. What, you know, talking about music is like dancing about architecture, right? So, and what I like about that is that, you know, I actually think talking about music can be useful, but the point is that there, you know, music has a range of expression that you can't put in language. But on the other hand, you know, the poetry or novels have a range of experience that music may not also have. It's not one is better than the other. I mean, they're just sort of all work together to me to complete an interesting life, a rich life.
Yeah. We're going to get into music soon, but we got to divert for a second. What's more fundamental, music or language?
Well, back to what you said a moment ago, I'm not. That feels a bit like a false binary to me. I guess I conceive of them as again quite connected in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, language is a way for us to communicate, but and to direct things and to inform things, but so is music. And music has often had very deep and important ritualistic functions in communities, whether very small or larger. And it's hard for me to imagine any communities that ever didn't have music as a modality of communication. And so I guess it would be hard for me to say one is more important than the other. They're just related.
See, again, you changed the word there from fundamental to important. It's a hard one. A lot of times people go, well, music is a language. But anyways, it's kind of evokes one of McLuhan's favorite is the Balinese have no word for art. They do everything as well as they can. Yeah. So, you know, I mean, Igor Stravinsky said he gave lectures on how music means nothing. And it's like, yeah, right. We want to talk about all the, it means, you know, it really, you know, and then I thought when you said the dancing about architecture, I think Zappa gets credited for that, but also Elvis Costello. But you can dance. I don't like that quote because you can dance about architecture. Yeah, but they're trying to say, you know, what Walter Pater said, all art aspires to the condition of music, which I interpret as saying music's the coolest of all the arts. It's better than painting, poetry, architecture, literature, everything. They all wish they could be as cool as you, you know. But again, it is you know, the use of word. And here's another stupid one, but I'll ask it anyways. Your observations of humans in general, are we more feeling beings or more thinking beings?
Again, I kind of think we're both, but I also think that might be a bit culturally specific. For example, you know, I've had a long immersion. I've had really, I'm really kind of a bilingual musician in terms of my training in Western music, but also 25 years of studying Hindustani music. Yeah. And first as a tabla drummer, learning from Pandit Sharda Sahai. And then when he passed in 2011, I switched to Hindustani vocal, and I've been learning from the Gudecha brothers, who are master Drupad singers. And in those, when I bounce back and forth between those worlds, especially the contemporary classical world that I'm often involved with as a Western percussionist, that is a world that is often very governed by thinking. Yeah, you know, we make things often. We make pieces based on concepts. We make pieces of music based on mathematical constructs, based on the way a score looks. But it does not work that way in the Hindustani communities that I'm involved with. The Hindustani world is very different, and it's a world that is very much rooted in physical, sensual feeling of sound and vibration and how those sounds relate to the tampura and the drone. Um, and a musician like Karl-Heinz Stockhausen or Ioannis Xenakis, that is so anathema, like so far from the Hindustani worldview. And so that's why I say it depends a bit on who you're talking to and who you're working with.
That's a really good distinguishing. I interviewed this guy who played accordion with Tom Waits, and I think he's into the type of music you just mentioned. His name's Willie Schwartz. Do you know him?
No, I haven't met him.
Anyways, I think you guys should talk sometimes, because he's a really interesting white American who lives in Berlin and has done what you've done, studied that kind of music for 30 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And you guys got it all, because you are like, Western music is heady thinking, Eastern music is feeling hearty, it could be, but again, it's both patterns. So these are two questions from Alan Turing in the 50s. One, is thinking a function of the soul?
Well, I don't know how to answer that, because I'm not sure I have any real understanding of what the soul is. I use the word all the time. I throw it around, but if you really press me on it, I'm not sure. And hey, sorry to be so mundane, because this is such a beautiful conversation, but the light is coming in here a little weird. Can you give me 2 seconds to just?
Of course, no worries. Yeah,
sorry,
no, very casual. No, that's all good. And I do recommend listeners to tune in to this Payton MacDonald's website and his film trailer. Amazing. You got some YouTube videos out there that are just amazing. So I appreciate that. So the second Turing question is, can machines think?
Oh, well, yeah, we're all talking a lot about that now, aren't we? A whole lot. I just watched an interview the other day. It was a very interesting interview, actually, with Tucker Carlson and Sam Altman. And Tucker Carlson was really pressing Altman on that. Yeah, I'm thinking about this AI issue quite a lot right now. Right now, they're machines, and they, when you're working with the LLMs, which I do every day, I have to in higher ed, because it basically these things dropped on us like a bomb, and it's been incredibly disruptive. And there's a real existential question of where higher ed is going to be in 5 years, partly because not just the pressures from our current administration, but and the wealth disparity problems in this country, but also because of AI. AI is an extremely disruptive force for education in general, but especially higher ed. But, right now, these are machines. I don't think anyone, especially the people who are really deep in this space, if you watch these interviews with Eric Schmidt, Ilya Stoitzker, people like that, no one thinks they're really thinking yet in the way that humans are thinking. It is uncanny. It almost feels like it when you're working with these LLMs at times, but they're not quite there. But again, it varies widely depending on who you're talking to. Some of these folks say that what they're calling AGI, artificial general intelligence, or ASI, artificial superintelligence, is anywhere from 18 months to 10 years away. But either way, it's not far. Whether they're right or whether it's going to just plateau and AI has already infiltrated our life in hundreds of ways that we don't even recognize all the time. But whether that's all it will be is just kind of simmering under the surface of a lot of machine interactions we already have. Nobody knows. We don't know. There are other critics of this. What's the one gentleman out there, Gary Curtis, I think his name is, who has said that the problem with the LLMs is that they are, all this prediction of getting to thinking machines where they're really thinking that. The problem is that the LLMs, this is all based on scaling, the idea of scaling the LLMs. That's why these people like Zuckerberg and Musk, they're all pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into these massive server centers, right? Because the idea is they need to scale up. In fact, Eric Schmidt, in one interview I read, actually it was a YouTube one I watched recently, he was saying that he had gone to Congress earlier this year and told them that the big problem with AI right now is a scalability problem, and that in order to get to this AGI that they're seeking, and it's not, honestly, a bit of an aside here, clear to me why they're so eager to get this, but at any rate, we can come back to that. He believes that U.S. needs to build 90 more nuclear reactors in order to power all this stuff.
Oh yeah,
the power is incredible. So, but back to your original question: are machines capable of thinking? Right now, I don't think anyone thinks that they're actually thinking. What they're doing is they're combining and recombining things based on pattern recognition from the thinking that humans have been doing. But will they be able to think in the way that we do? Many very smart people who know more about this than I do think that is coming close.
Wow. Couple things really good there. Someone said AI is in its early stage and it's our job to raise it well. Oh, okay, that's all good. But this was probably 10 or 15 years ago. I met the guy who invented the bumper sticker, "Drum machines have no soul." Now, I know Sly Stone was one of the first who combined a drum machine with a real drummer and did it really well, to the point where Miles Davis played the song over and over to his band members in time. But I said to the guy, dude, that's like saying a chair has no soul. Yeah, I think what you're trying to say is that drum machines can be misused according to my aesthetic. And he goes, that's too long for a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
You know, to go back to your word soul.
Yeah.
But do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
Oh, well, again, binaries, to me, those are inextricably linked. My happiest days are the days where I'm creating things, where I'm writing music and writing, actually just started writing poetry recently. A big surprise to me. I never thought I would be doing that, but it's actually been a very deeply transformative experience. But when I'm creating music, when I'm making films, when I'm creating anything, which includes teaching, even creating an assignment can be a very creative and interesting, use of one's time. But those things give me a lot of meaning, and those are the happiest days I have, for sure.
But I got the question from Viktor Frankl, and I'm curious if you agree or disagree with him. He says meaning tends to last and happiness doesn't necessarily last.
Well, yeah, perhaps. I don't know, but I know that when I'm doing meaningful things every day, which I try to every day, I feel pretty damn happy most of the time.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's lasting. But is it, I guess I have to keep going back to the well. That's true.
Yeah. Does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're more so detecting it or more so creating it?
Well, I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because I'm not sure I understand what consciousness is.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to punt. Don't
worry. Don't worry. You saying I don't know or I can't answer that is totally valid. In fact, Rebecca Solnit says it so well. She goes, just because you ask me a question doesn't mean I have to answer it. So like, I'm not trying to put people on the spot.
Yeah.
You know, they say, I don't know. That's fine. And it's really just prompts to talk. Now,
sure.
What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Oh, well, do you mean scientifically? I have no idea, but more poetically or experientially, I would probably say speed of thought.
Yeah, there's no right or wrong answers, but that one you got right.
Did I?
Yeah, well, talk about poetry. Audre Lorde said, you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Her colleague Yvonne Rainer said, oh, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest? And it doesn't have to be tangible.
What new tool do I suggest for what?
Well, that's a good question. And I'm basically asking you put the questions into the context you want. Sometimes I open the question with a cute quote. It doesn't mean you have to apply it. Basically, I'm asking you, what tool do you most gravitate towards? And you can add the word new if you want. It can be new or whatever tool you most gravitate towards, or a new tool, and or it can apply to dismantling the master's house. When Audre Lorde said it, she's probably talking about white supremacy. You can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. That doesn't mean she's right or wrong, but that's just a prompt, but again, to open it up to, more if you want. But it's really just, what tool do you most gravitate towards? Because I mean, look at, dude, you are an educator, a filmmaker, and I love your attraction to learning editing. You've said, man, I've learned all this editing stuff. You're a good filmmaker. I mean, that trailer, I mean, I've studied cinema for 60 years. That trailer of yours in 1 minute is brilliant. No crew, no this. I mean, that's what everybody wants to know, who provided your craft services. I love the picture of your junk food too. Guys, I help. You got a ride a bike for many hours and you got Twix bars there, and it's like, yeah, well, you're not. So I mean, you're a filmmaker, a educator, a percussionist, composer, a poet. You're so many. I mean, but if I just said, what tool do you most gravitate towards, it doesn't have to be one of those. Just what, and it doesn't have to be tangible.
Yeah. Man, that's such a great question. I would love to give you a good answer on that, but I think I need more time to think. Can we maybe come back?
Well, definitely. Yeah, everything comes full circle.
It's such an interesting question, though.
Knowing what you've already said is the time to do something you love. Is there's something about I think your drive is, I mean, we could just tangent for a second, is I think where did you get your work ethic from?
I don't know. I think a lot of that was seeing my parents, Yeah. I mean, I remember a lot of times my dad would come home from work. He'd spend time with us. He'd eat dinner, and then I'd see him in his office again.
Yeah.
A couple more hours at night. My mom's works very hard, always worked very hard. I mean, she was working full time, and she was doing most of the house and care kids also.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it was nurture, and part of it might have been just nature. But I tell you, here's the thing: it's not work.
That's it. Yeah.
That's the thing. There's a great blogger. I don't know if you know this cat. His name is Mr. Money Mustache. His real name is Pete Adnesses. You should check him out, Mr. Money Mustache. He lives in Colorado. I've been reading his stuff for about 10 years. My wife turned me on to it. He's one of these guys he's one of the FIRE people, the financially independent, retire early guys. So he and his wife were saving 70% of their income throughout their 20s into their early 30s. And he retired at the age of 32. And so he started writing a blog about that whole process. And the blog is really interesting and deep. The New Yorker did a profile on him. Like, he got a lot of national attention because it goes above your usual financial blog. The reason it's interesting and deep is that he talks a lot about how Americans, especially, are just phenomenally wasteful with money. But the money they're wasting is also wasting their lives.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they're borrowing and spending and borrowing and spending. And there is this cycle of just constant cycle of like financial duress. And they're worse off than if they had actually been more frugal, because frugal doesn't mean you're denying yourself stuff. Yeah. So when I ride my bicycle to work, the response I get from most of my colleagues and students and staff is like, oh, that must be awful. It's so hot out, and it's this and that. And everything. But Gerry, my mind is in the exact opposite place. Totally. When I ride my bike to work, I'm not creating any air pollution. I'm not creating any noise pollution. I'm keeping the roads more clear so that our wonderful first responders can do their jobs and keep, help people. I am freeing up parking spots at the school. And man, I get my exercise in. I get fresh air. Like by the time I get to school, I feel pumped up, ready to go.
Yeah.
By the time I leave the university, within 2 or 3 pedal strokes, my worries have all disappeared.
Yeah.
It is not in any way, riding a bike versus driving a car when it's possible. It's not possible for everyone, depending on where they live and everything. But it is not a sacrifice. It is not a diminution of luxury. It is an abundance of luxury. It is an incredible, way to enhance your life. So that's one of the things Mr. Money Mustache talks a lot about, and that's why his blog is so much more interesting than your usual financial thing. And one of the things he talks about in that blog is what he calls the Buddhas. These are the people who work because they love what they're doing.
Yeah.
And the money is like, great, fine, but that's not what they're there for. I mean, look, I had the resources. I was lucky. I was born into a middle-class family, and my parents were frugal and good with money. I could have become a cardiologist. I could have become a hedge fund manager. I could have probably done whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
But I chose to do this, and I'm now making pretty good money after a long time. It took, but it wasn't that way when I started. But it's not that many days where I wake up and I feel like what I'm doing is work.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel like work. I mean,
yeah,
sometimes, I get a difficult student or whatever. That feels like work. But most of the time, it's pretty great.
Yeah. I lecture to students sometimes, and I say, get your job and your life as mixed up as possible. And that's a big thing.
That's a great way to put it.
What you said too is just tell those people, because I ride my bike 3 times a day, and tell those people the normal American spends a third of their year making the money to get to work. So that sounds like a scam right there. And I come from the Motor City. It's like, oh my God. Yeah, my dad worked for GM so that I could get a good education and learn that cars suck, but nobody thinks car. The only time I saw that cars suck is in a motorcycle shop once, and it said cars suck, But
I don't want to be a hypocrite. I do drive my car. There's times I got to move equipment, or there's times the roads are icy, and I love motorcycles, and I rode my motorcycle today. So, but again, that I don't feel, people ask me that all the time. They're like, well, isn't it kind of cold to ride a motorcycle? Isn't it kind of hot? And I'm like, no, it's great.
Yeah.
It's so amazing.
You have a great attitude, and this is beautiful, because that work ethic question, which got this going, was most people go their parents. And the funny thing is that if you look up work ethic in Wikipedia, about the 3rd paragraph down, it says this could be a scam from consumer culture.
Yeah.
And it is like you're treating it as your life. But work ethic, some people are so driven, and I know I've worked for rich people. My wife's worked for rich people, and that's what they do. They spend their whole life spending their money, and they don't live life. Yeah. They end up that they're too wrapped up in the money thing. Yeah. And I'm cheap, and my dad goes, "You're not cheap, you're frugal." And so I love that you use that word frugal instead of cheap, because it's just smart. But the follow-up question to tool, what tool do you most gravitate towards, is toy. So I kept asking the tool question, and one person says, well, what about a toy? So what's a toy you gravitate towards?
Well, yeah, I like things with 2 wheels that can go. I really do. And it took me it took me a while to kind of publicly, I don't know why, to realize that bicycles and motorcycles are really important to me. It's not just a hobby or just a way to get around. It's that, but there's a tremendous sense of freedom and purpose and meaning. And man, I just love them, and I love them equally so. I mean, bicycles, look, if I had to make a choice, I would probably choose the bicycle, because you do get the physical exercise and and obviously it's you're not burning gas and such. But the fact is, man, I do love motorcycles, and I love the way they look. I love the way they sound. I love the way it feels. When you when you twist that throttle and you feel that surge of power, and it's amazing. And cars can be very beautiful things. I used to watch sometimes little clips from Jay Leno's show that he has up on YouTube, and it's fun to watch because you just see that passion he has.
Yeah.
I don't mean his late night show; I mean his car show.
Yeah.
But he's equally in love with cars and motorcycles, and it's fun watching him in that big hangar. That place he has where he's waxing poetic about this car or about this motorcycle, and so I get that. But cars for me never just don't have the visceral feeling. So when it comes to a toy. But I wouldn't think of the word toy in a pejorative way. To me, toy is related to play, and play is such a beautiful thing for humans to do. And one thing I'm trying to do as I'm getting older is I'm trying to not. I want to keep playing, and I don't want to ever stop playing.
Yeah.
But I do have an answer for you on the tool question.
Okay, go ahead.
I would have to say I do a lot of things, and I have a busy, rich life, and so efficiency is a tool. That's important.
There you go.
I have to be efficient. Otherwise, I can't do all these things. And I don't do them all at the same time. There are times where I'm leaning more into one thing or another. But efficiency is a tool.
It's really good. And the thing about bikes also for me, and my wife's a songwriter too and lyricist, and it's when you're turning wheels, there's something about it with your legs that it frees you up and you can get this thinking and creative thought. I do some of my best creative thinking on my bicycle. And that's why I ride it 3 times a day, especially like in the morning at 6 a.m. There's no one around. Yeah. And it's just like you're in what you said, a sense of freedom and purpose. Really well articulated. Payton, what do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
Well, I'm a father now, and I've got a 17-year-old son and a 15-year-old daughter. And man, they're super kids. They're just really interesting and super bright, man. They're doing really well in school with no prodding on my part or my wife's part. They just do it. But I worry about stuff I figure probably millions of parents worry about every night. I worry about the state of the planet that they're inheriting. I'm worried about the financial situation, the wealth disparity. I mentioned this earlier, but it's bad in America right now. I think it's worse than when Upton Sinclair wrote The Jungle. It's not good, and it doesn't seem to be getting better. I worry about that too. I think they'll probably be okay because of the resources they have, but they're moving into a world where that wealth disparity is continuing to grow, and that's very destabilizing for societies. So I worry about that. And that's probably the main thing I worry about. And, I transfer that to my students at the university. I take our job here really seriously. I really want our students to have really full and rich lives, and I want them to find meaningful employment. And I worry about that. When I mentioned AI earlier, being a bomb in higher ed, what part of what I meant by that is that higher ed has always had this kind of tension that's gone back and forth. What is our purpose more, intellectual and emotional and developmental, or is it more vocational? Why are people here at college? Are they here to get a job, or are they here to become better and deeper and human beings? And, we've always kind of moved back and forth, but the vocational part is important. And, we try to keep those things in balance in our own music department. But a lot of entry-level jobs that college graduates have been able to get over the decades are rapidly disappearing with AI. And that's a real concern. I worry about that. I worry about students who are taking 3, 4, 5 years out of their life. That's opportunity costs right there. Some of them are taking out loans. I worry about them taking on financial water and then moving into a marketplace where there are no jobs for them. Now, hopefully, all that work we did on the other side of it with the creativity, with the community building, with the deeper thinking, the ability to manage complex nuance in a complex pluralistic society. Hopefully all that will pay off and they'll still be able to figure out how to survive. But I worry about it. I really do.
Yeah, really well put. We're going to get into a lot of what you said there. And this is one entry. McLuhan learned from Ezra Pound, the poet, that artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, so we might learn how to cope with what we don't like about our inventions. So I asked you the question Marshall probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
Yeah. Well, that's what I think what I meant a little bit earlier when I said, there's a lot of rhetoric flying around right now about how dangerous AGI might be for us.
Yeah.
And the question I keep asking is, if it's so dangerous, why are we building it? But I think the answer, I don't know. I'm improvising here, but I think the answer a little bit is in two parts. One is this sort of insatiable human curiosity.
Yeah.
We're playing God in a way. Can we make an intelligent being? It's like a Frankenstein kind of thing. And the other is just simply greed.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a handful of people making a ton of money off all this right now. It's all speculative. I don't know, if you've looked at your retirement accounts lately, they're doing great, but a lot of it has to do with this AI bubble, and it's all speculative. None of these companies have actually made a dime yet. So yeah, I think it's partly greed, partly curiosity, and I think that's why we ignore those dangers a lot of times.
Yeah, we were talking about this in our group today, and I says, I'm going to just type into AI right now. Did the humans who invented you operate with greed and recklessness? It's the way you word it. I didn't quite refine it, but just to see what the AI would say, because somebody wrote to AI, I hope you have a good weekend, and it wrote back and it says, I'm not capable of dealing with those kind of things.
So what was the answer it gave you?
I didn't type it in. I was sort of formulating it. It really is. It's amazing how I just use Google all the time, but it automatically gives me AI answers. So I've learned how to use quotes and change one word and I get a totally different answer. So it's interesting how it's all about the wording.
Well, that's what they call prompt engineering.
Prompt engineering is a good way to put it. Yeah.
I took a little class, this Coursera class on AI earlier this summer. It's very easy and it's kind of real basic level stuff, but they had a whole section about prompt engineering. And Gerry, you're absolutely right that how you make the prompt and how you formulate it can give you wildly different answers, not just in terms of content, but also quality.
Yeah.
So there is a bit of a science and art to the prompting, and
it's called social engineering. It's about all. Yeah, we got the data says this. It's like, well, what's your source on that data, and who was financing that data research? So these people know how to, do data, so it promotes exactly what they want. So that goes perfectly to this page. Do artists have moral obligation?
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know, man. I'm sorry to punt on that one too, but I'm not sure. I mean, I think we have a certain moral obligation in the way that any human being has a certain moral obligation, right? But what in terms of when I'm making a work of art, do I have an obligation to make something that makes society, quote, better?
Yeah.
That I don't know. I think that's so contextual. I mean, how would one decide? I mean, let's look at South Park, for example. Has South Park made society better or worse? I mean, you could say, well, it's certainly raised the level of crudity and crassness in public discourse.
Totally.
On the other hand, those guys, I watched a couple of the episodes from this year, and it's kind of great to see them really going to town on some of our leadership at the executive branch right now. And I'm grateful that they kind of have the balls to do it on that platform, on that wide of a platform. So is it making our society better or worse? Well, I kind of, it depends on what you want.
Yeah. It's like this. Once you create your art, it's no longer yours. The user can do anything they want with it. So, I had to bias. I knew Matt Groening when he started making The Simpsons. In the long run, I never watched it. And people like, how can you not watch The Simpsons? And, it's like it turned kids into assholes. And it's like, no, it turned kids into critical thinkers and good comedy writers. Who knows? You can't dictate what I mean, I work with Zappa, is the same thing. People think that is like, he's a sexist and a racist and this and that, and it's pretty deep when it gets to that. But are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
I'm not afraid of ideas.
Yeah.
So I'm not, it's to me, it's irrelevance to whether it's old or new. What is more important to me is whether it's relevant and whether it's perhaps useful, But that's one thing, when I'm serving as a chairperson of our music department right now. So I'm in a leadership role, and I did this other degree. Actually, I just finished it in June. Over the last couple of years, I got this master's degree in higher education administration. And one of the classes we took was a leadership course. So I did a lot of reading about leadership for 2 or 3 months. And then since then, I've kept up the reading. But one of the things that you will find is true for a lot of great leaders, especially in the business world, is that, and this was really true for Steve Jobs, who he could be not a great human being all the time, but he was kind of a brilliant business person in a lot of ways and a brilliant leader. But man, he would change on a dime. If someone brought in a great idea, he had no problem just dropping whatever he was thinking of and saying, yep, that's what we're going to do. That's the best idea. And I like that, actually. That feels good to me in a way, because it feels like I'm committed to whatever it is we're trying to do as a team. And I like being a team. I like being on teams. I like working with other people. And when other people have ideas that are better than mine, I am happy to drop whatever I was thinking. So it doesn't matter to me if they bring in an old idea or a new idea. If it's the right idea, I'm on.
Is that what they say in the leadership courses? Be willing to change, or do they say keep your course, or they don't really say one or the other?
It depends, I think, is the answer. It depends on the situation. But in general, I'll tell you this, I think it's okay. I think this is an okay way to reduce all that reading I did and videos and TED Talks and lectures and everything else. In a way, it reminds, there's this beautiful passage in the Tao that Lao Tzu wrote so many thousands of years ago, the Tao Te Ching. And of course, there's different translations, so I'm just going to kind of but the basic idea is that when a great leader is leading, the people say, wow, we did this ourselves.
Yes.
It's like they don't even, and so that's, I try as the chair in my own little tiny little sphere of influence around the world. It's very tiny. I got 232 music majors. I've got 13 full-time faculty. I got 82 adjunct faculty and some staff, so it's not, I'm not managing, it's not like Jeff Bezos or something here, but in my own tiny little world, that is something that I try to always, it's not about me.
Yeah.
It's about what we're trying to do. And it's about, my job is to support the faculty and advocate for the students. And if I'm doing my job well, it's best if people don't even know I'm here.
It's really good. That's humble, and the beauty of it all. It's getting the big picture. It's back to 2 words you used earlier. Pattern recognition leads to comprehensive awareness, the big picture. It's about all of us. That's really good. Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever, or one of them?
Yeah, I remember music. I definitely remember by the time I was maybe 2-ish or something. I remember I remember hearing music and wanting to move to it. Like in my bedroom, I was hearing it. We had this old, in this house we were in at the time. It was this, they were doing this for a while in the 70s. They had these like radios that would, like, each room had a little thing on the wall where you could push a button. Yeah, you remember? I don't know what they're called, but I remember being able to do that and listen to top 40 radio, Casey Kasem.
Yeah.
And I remember so maybe that, I don't know how old that was, but anyway, it was late 70s, early 80s. I remember just being so excited about music and wanting to move to it a lot. My mom tells me I used to dance a lot in the crib. When she would put on music, I would stand up with my hands on the edge of the crib and I would move to it. I don't remember that. But yeah, my early memories are music. I also have memories of waking up from naps when I was maybe, I must have been like 3 or 4 years old. And I remember in the summertime waking up from naps, and I actually remember looking at the ceiling, and I remember the light coming through the window, and I remember the sound of like children playing in the distance and maybe a distant car, like kind of suburban American sounds. But that's still a very comforting sound on a hot summer day. When like a t-ball game going off in the background somewhere, like, oh, that's great. I love it.
So cool. Really articulate. I got a good picture there you painted. Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
Well, it depends on what you're remembering. But I think in general, I have memories of beautiful times in my life. I have memories of very difficult times in my life, but it all funnels into the life. So I guess I would say it's more of a blessing, I think, to remember these things. But I don't know. I've never, I've been lucky, Gerry. I like I said, we had a couple of years where our son was very sick, and actually our daughter got sick a little bit after that. But other than that, I was never abused as a child. I never, suffered like children who grow up in a war zone, seeing death around them at every moment, and deprivation and starvation. I never suffered those things. So if I had, memories might be very different for me, but I've been really lucky. I've had a very good and easy life in a lot of ways. And so right now I would say memories are a blessing.
Tell me someone within your immediate family who had an impact on you, and what specifically was the impact?
Oh gosh, I have to mention Jessica Johnson, my wife. I mean, she's just a tremendous person. What can I say?
What you mainly get from her? How many years you been together?
We were married in 1997. So that's 28 years. We were
28 years. Really good.
We were 22 years old and we got married. And amazing. She hasn't thrown me out after all these motorcycles, like avant-garde music.
Avant-garde. Like my dad would always go, I'm on probation. And my mom got sick and tired of that after 60 years ago. She quit saying that. But I mean, you could talk for hours, but one main thing you think you got from her, what's the impact mainly?
Healthy living is better living.
Wow, that's good.
The food we put in our bodies has just a huge impact on how we think and how we feel. And I'm so lucky. She loves cooking. It's a hobby and a passion for her, but she doesn't just cook. She cooks in a way that's artistic, but she also puts a lot of thought into the nutritional aspect of it. And I've always eaten really well. And I usually do the dishes. That's kind of the way we balance out the workload. Although I think she still does more work because she plans the meals and everything. But healthy living, dietary, getting enough sleep. I think I would probably be the one. I'm probably harder on my body and my psyche than she is. She's better at self-care and nurturing. And that's a really good thing for me to have in my life. And I'm really grateful for that.
Really cool. And now the same question outside your immediate family, someone who had an impact, and what was the impact?
Oh, well, Gerry, there's so many, it would be hard for me to choose just one. I would have to bring in, mention my teachers, really, my musical teachers. And for example, when I was at University of Michigan for my undergrad, Michael Udall was my primary faculty teacher, but not the only one. I also worked with Steve Rush quite a bit, and Ed Serra, some really wonderful people. But Mike, I probably spent the most time with. He directed the percussion studio there. But Mike is a really interesting guy. He lives in Colorado now, but he's a composer. He did a lot of really interesting interdisciplinary work. His wife was a dancer, and they did some really great collaborative projects there. And he's worked with all sorts of poets and visual artists and stuff over the years. Mike is really kind of a Renaissance man in a lot of ways. Instrument builder, teacher, pedagogue. I mentioned composer, arranger. So having him as a teacher was exactly the right teacher at the undergrad level for me. But also, John Beck, when I was at the Eastman School in percussion, was hugely instrumental. My composition teachers, Robert Morris especially, probably he was the biggest one when I was at Eastman. But I also worked for a year with Augusta Reed Thomas. She was a really great composition teacher. And then, of course, my Indian gurus, Pandit Sharda Sahai and the Gundecha brothers, been hugely influential.
Really
good.
So
many friends. Elliot Sharp is a longtime friend and mentor for me. Michael Harrison. I mean, I could go on and on, but let's just say teachers.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Were you raised a particular religion?
I was raised Christmas and Easter Methodist. So what I mean by that is we just would go to church a couple times a year. And then when I was in high school, I got a little more into it, and I was playing in this handbell choir at the Methodist church, which I really enjoyed. Or was it the Presbyterian church? Might have been the Presbyterian church. Actually, I can't remember now. But I did that for a couple of years, and then nothing through undergrad. And then during my graduate school years at the Eastman School of Music, I got hired as a choir director for a small suburban Methodist choir. And I worked for them for 3 years. And I really enjoyed that job primarily because of the pastor and the organist. The pastor, a gentleman named Paul Gongloff, he actually just passed away last year. Paul was great, man. We would go have beers every Wednesday night after the choir rehearsal, and just such a generous, open person. He'd traveled widely, and he really had an interesting, a very ecumenical, but also really kind of open-hearted interpretation of the Christian faith and of the teachings of Jesus. And he was a great inspiration. And organist Margaret Ann Milne, also same thing. Just a wonderful human being. And so, yeah, that was kind of it. But I haven't been involved with organized religion since then. I do read both the Old and New Testament on a somewhat regular basis. But I don't put any priority over that text over other religious texts. I also read the Gita. I also read the Tao Te Ching, which is more of not really a religion. I think the Tao is more of a kind of manual for living. But I read the Quran many, many years ago. I'd like to reread it, actually. But so I'm not involved. I've been kind of frustrated with organized religion and have sort of stayed away. And I'm also honestly just so busy that when I have a Sunday free, I really don't want to go sit in a pew. I would really rather get out in the woods.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I'm at with that right now.
Nature is your religion. But do you pray?
Not really.
If God exists, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good question. I guess probably like most folks, I would hope that God would show me some grace for my many, many shortcomings and fallacies in my life. I certainly haven't always made the right decisions or been the best person, even though I've tried. But, I've tried.
Payton, do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
Yeah. I don't know. How did Hitler get to where he was? It's interesting. If you read about his life, like how did that transformation happen? How did Ted Bundy get to there? Was he an inherently evil person, or was something, was there some kind of demonic force that had taken hold of him?
Yeah, most people say we're all capable of evil, or a lot of people do. But a lot of people say, nope, there's evil people in the world. But really the hidden question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? Like your kids come home and say, I'm being bullied. And I'll set this up with a few modern thinkers. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from The Mob and the Samurai. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So again, it's a lot of prompts, but the basic question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
Well, I don't know that you empower them necessarily. I guess, depends on what, I mean, so, one thing I found with teaching, for example, sometimes you'll get a class, you're in front of a class, you got whatever, 20, 30 kids and kids, I didn't say kids, I'm working with college students, they're adults, but,
yeah.
And you have one that's really a problem, but what I've usually found is that they're a problem. They're usually a problem for a reason. They're not inherently evil. They're not inherently trying to ruin things. It's more like, they need to move faster. Like the class is too slow, or the educational system is not the right system for them. This is a very systemized thing I'm involved with. And I like higher ed. I believe in it, but I'm the first to admit there's problems with this sort of systemized education. But one thing I have found effective is usually to acknowledge, rather than trying to dismiss or expel or push away someone who's being a problem, whether it's a bully or whether it's a disruptive student or something. It's usually, I think, more along the answer of keep your enemies closer, of trying to get them involved in a way that diffuses the tension and actually creates something positive out of the situation. So I don't know if acknowledging your enemy empowers them. I mean, who are my enemies right now? Well, I have a lot of close friends and family members who are members of the LGBTQ community, right? So an enemy right now might be the people who are trying to make those people illegal.
Yeah.
There are people working very hard right now who are trying to make members of the queer community illegal. They're trying to, I think what they would really like is to get rid of all of them, to deport all of them out of the United States. That really would make some people very happy. So I would say that's a kind of an enemy, but I acknowledging, I guess, to me, maybe it hinges, it's maybe semantics, but it hinges on what we're talking about when we're talking about acknowledgement. But I have to recognize these people exist and they're trying to do this work. So I can't bury my head in the sand.
Yeah.
I can't ignore it. I can belittle them and try to, bring them down in a way verbally, but that won't do much. That'll probably just empower them more. It'll probably give their followers more ammunition, to think that I'm just what are they, the lunatic left? I'm part of the lunatic left or something like this. So I think acknowledgement means recognizing these people are here and they're serious about what they're doing, and we have to deal with this.
Yeah, that's how some people flip the Alan Watts. Say, if you don't acknowledge them, you empower them. But this is Nassim Taleb saying, games were created to give non-heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we can tell who a hero is. Gregory Bateson, the anthropologist, says if the criminal gets caught, does he go, whoa, my criminal skills weren't up to snuff? Or does he go, oh, I did something socially or morally wrong? So the basic question, again, it's just, what do we do about this? And does punishment work?
Yeah. Well, it might depend on the crime. I mean, the prison system in this country is not working very well.
No.
It's I don't think what is the term, the recidivism, what is that word? I'm messing it up. Anyway, the rate is high. A lot of people, from what I've seen, coming out of prison end up going right back in, or they end up back. And there are a lot of people being punished for things that other people doing the same stuff are not getting punished for. So that's a problem.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Punishment, being a father and having raised kids, you get a lot of mixed messages when you're raising kids about how to raise kids. There's like 100 different books. You got your parents telling you this, your grandparents telling you this, you got your friends telling you this, you got some expert on TV telling you this. It's hard, and there really is no manual for it. And sure, I tried over the years, punishing my kids, never physically or verbally, but maybe something like, you have to go to bed early or this or that. It didn't usually work very well, I have to tell you.
Yeah.
What worked better was figuring out why are they acting out or being difficult in the first place. And usually once we figured that out and we were able to manage it, the problems disappeared.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think there are a lot of people in this country who are in prison who probably shouldn't be. There's probably a better allocation of our resources that would help people in ways, providing them with social supports or providing them with opportunities that would have prevented them from ending up committing these crimes in the first place. But I don't know, we as a country, we just we haven't gotten there yet. We're still prioritizing, this defense budget and a lot of other stuff. Look, I'm not naive. We need a strong defense, but man, it's a lot. We're up to almost $1 trillion a year.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Yeah.
I mean,
I wrote an essay recently, Can Art Stop War? And it sounds naive, but it's basically, we're probably more hardwired to be cooperating than we are to resolving conflict with military. So it's like, matriarchy and all that. But here, let's shift a little. This is James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin 100 years ago. He basically checked out. He said, this is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree? Years later, Faulkner said sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I'm back and forth on that one. I will say this, that, I love, one of the things that is nice about my life is I only live 20 miles outside of New York City. Yeah. And I'm not a city person. I would never want to live in New York City, but I love going into New York City. Yeah. And I love going to galleries. I love going to art galleries.
Yeah.
And I do. And I go and I learn a lot. Some of the art I like, some of it I don't like as much, but I always go and I always see things that are very inspiring. But I've never seen anything in a museum in New York, and that includes places like MoMA and the Guggenheim and the top, but also actually sometimes I like the startup areas, the ones where you can gallery hop for free. Those neighborhoods to me are in some ways more interesting. Anyway. Yeah. I've seen tremendous art, but I've never seen anything better than the stuff I've seen when I'm on multi-day bikepacking trips in remote areas. But I wouldn't say that what I see when I'm in those remote areas I also wouldn't say that's better than what I'm seeing in New York. They are, I guess for me, they're able to coexist, and they're both really quite beautiful and interesting. But there are times where I guess in some ways that's why I'm less interested in representational nature art. So like landscape paintings from the 19th century, to me, I find less. I appreciate them for the craftsmanship if they're really well done. But I don't really want to spend a lot of time looking at them. I would rather just get on my bike and go somewhere, pedal somewhere, and see that thing myself.
It's really good. That's what my mom and dad taught me. They sent me to art museums, in art galleries, and they said, hey, the best art museum is in the sky. It's called the clouds, and you can just stare at them and it's forever changing. Look, and it's an amazing phenomenon. I mean, that's what I loved about your 1 minute trailer. I'm into trailers. 1 minute of your trailer. Boy, you got the blues of the sky. You got the texture of the road, it was really beautiful. And, I usually ask people to tell us their tipping points in what they pursue, but I just would rather refer people to some of these great podcasts you've done on YouTube to get that, because you've really concisely articulated it, like on Greg Bendian's podcast, which I've interviewed Greg, and he really did a good job at bringing out where you chose your paths. So let's just cut to the chase, Payton, because you're a creator, an improviser. I mean, the three things they say on your website are composer, improviser, and percussionist. And I know you're a lot more. Like I've said, you're a filmmaker, a poet, and an educator. Screenwriting teacher told me great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. When you're composing, let's just go with music. You're composing a piece. You're not improvising it. You're composing a piece, and it's not a commission. What role does intention play in your creative process?
Well, if I'm composing a piece that where there is no improvisation, where the players are playing what's on the page, like in a more traditional classical ensemble. Like I just finished a piece a few months ago for the Bergamot String Quartet that was like that.
Yeah.
In that context, it is important. I guess intention is important to me. It's important to me that the audience, understand what's going on. I'm not particularly interested in complex hidden architectures. And I'm not particularly trying to present something that I would like the audience to figure out, per se. But there are other spaces, like if you look at my Sonic Peaks project, which I'm involved with now, that's an ongoing multi-year, probably multi-decade project. I'm hiking the highest 146, it depends on which list you look at, but peaks in the Northeast. So I'm about getting close to the halfway point on this now. But and then I make these graphic scores based on my experience out there. And the intention is vague on those scores.
Yeah.
There's a lot of room for people to do them different ways. And when people I'm not working with directly want the scores, I just send them to them, or they can take them off the site. But I also will send them a couple, like a short write-up I have that goes with it, that gives them some thoughts and ideas. But the gist of the whole thing is all I'm really asking them to do is just take it seriously. So the scores are not, it's not like a permission slip to blow bebop licks or play, or play radio jingles or whatever. The idea is that you're really trying to engage with the score. But how that turns out, as long as they bring a certain seriousness to it, I'm totally cool with it. But my intention is only that I'm providing them with a kind of a kit, like a tool kit.
Yeah.
In fact, Lou Harrison used to call these tune kits. That was his term for them. And he has some pieces that are like that, where he gives you things and then you can mix and match and kind of work with them and make your own piece out of them. So the concept of intention depends a bit on what kind of music I'm writing.
Yeah. There's really two things he evoked. Satie wrote on one of his scores, play like a nightingale with a toothache. Talk about nature. That sounds like something Payton would hear. I'm driving right along this country path with my bike. I heard a nightingale with a toothache. I know how to play that.
That's great, actually.
But I mean, imagine, being in France and reading that on a score. What do you mean, play like a nightingale with a toothache? And then the other one was, I forgot to bring this up earlier, but you brought serious. You brought the word serious up there. You want them to be serious. The new Eno documentary, he says, play is how children learn. Art is how adults play.
Oh, that's great. I like
that.
And
do you know the documentary they put about him? You got to know this because you're an award-winning documentary filmmaker. Every screening is different. There's never one copy of the film that's the same. So they fiddle with the editing or add more or less or whatever.
That's a cool idea.
That's an amazing idea, because in now this technology, yeah, you don't have to mail a DCP or anything. You just go on up in the air and pull it out of the sky. Okay, your screening's going to have this one. So that's pretty amazing. But you did to anticipate this, Payton, you got ESP, and that is Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your listener when you're in your creative process? And you can break it down when you're playing a composed piece or when you're improvising. How much are you thinking of your listener?
Yeah, that answer to that's going to be pretty contextual. When I'm working on the graphic scores, I'm not thinking about them at all. I'm just making something, and it'll fall where it falls, and that might be total obscurity. I mean, it might just, all this time and effort I put into this project may go nowhere. After I die, if no one renews the website, that's it. It's it's kind of, I mean, there are hard copies around, but I don't know. It'd be up to
dude, Payton, no, because you know what the Wayback Machine is on archive.org.
No,
dude, your website will never go away.
Oh, really?
They take a picture of every website. So if the government takes your website down, it's on. Go to archive.org and type in your URL in the Wayback Machine, and it will still be there.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's good to know.
You could write in your will to your kids, make sure you renew the website.
Yeah.
But there it is. It's still up there. But anyways, that's just assuming people have to know what your website was, because you can't type in. Yeah. But you did mention that when I first asked you a composed piece like Bergamot String Quartet, you said you are thinking of your audience.
Yeah, so that would be
in what way? Yeah.
Well, I mean, in that context, I'm thinking about where are they going to play this piece, who's going to listen to it. It doesn't matter. It matters in the sense that I know where the piece is going to get played. It's going to get played in concert halls or art galleries or clubs for people who are into new music, who want to go, and their minds and their ears are open to hearing new and different stuff. And so I don't really think at all about whether what I'm writing is whether the audience is going to like it or not. In fact, that's one of my ways of sort of untangling this question of what is commercial music and what is, I guess, art music or not commercial music. But to me, that's one of the only ways I found to untangle that is that if someone's writing commercial music, they're thinking 100% about what does the audience want to hear. Yeah. And they're going to change. They're going to write whatever they have to make the audience happy. Whereas a lot of the work I do, I don't really care whether the audience likes it or not.
Yeah,
I'm really more interested in the experience of the creative experience of composing, and I'm very interested in my performers. I want to write something that they enjoy playing.
Yeah.
With Bergamot, they like doing they do Lackaman and Xenakis, and they do all kinds of stuff, and some of it's super crazy, and their ears and minds are wide open, and their technique is formidable. So in that case, I don't really care much about what the audience thinks, but I also know somewhere in the back of my head that any audience that's going to go to their concert is probably going to be into whatever. But when I'm writing more like pedagogical percussion music, there's a situation where, and I have a bunch of that stuff published with C. Allen Publications. That's music where I'm thinking very carefully about, what is a student going to want to play? It's going to be on a senior recital.
Yeah.
The parents and the grandparents are going to be there. So
that's good.
And so in a way, it's kind of commercial music. And I'm okay with that. I don't mind going back and forth a little bit. But I am thinking about those things in that context.
I worked for Zappa for 10 years, and he would say, I write this music for myself. If other people like it, it's a bonus. It's like, yeah, right. In my opinion, I didn't tell him this, but in my opinion, he was over romanticizing. He lives in a commercial consumer culture. He knew if he hit these notes and these lyrics, they would buy this music, and then he could make more music. But in a lot of ways, people think he's so, he never sold out or whatever. But he did write pop songs and totally experimental songs. I mean, go on YouTube and type in Dead Air by Frank Zappa, and it's just him staring with the microphone for 30 seconds, and there's nothing. Well, it's just a Cage beat, which, do you know Cage's 433 charted on the English pop charts about 10 or 15 years ago? So it did he write it, and go, hey, man, someday this is going to chart? And the same with Bulgarian's Women's Choir. Remember when that first came out? That charted on the pop charts. And that was just marketing or whatever, but still it doesn't, so it's that whole idea of how do you, break through, like Mr. Bungle, when they came out, we were like, this is just Zappa wannabes or John Zorn, but they got more airplay than Frank ever got,
Yeah.
So that was really good. And so this is an extension question, and Marshall learned this from Walt Whitman and James Joyce, that everything we invent extends some humanness, like a human sensorium. So a knife and fork extends our teeth. Shutter in a camera or projector extends our eyelid. And maybe non-tangible, say religion or philosophy, might extend consciousness. I figured the two main, let's go to two of your main tools. Let's go to the bike first. What does the bicycle extend? What humanness does the bicycle extend for you?
Motion.
Wow, that is good. And now the mallet or the marimba itself. I mean, that's a hard one for me to check. You could do both or either. What does the mallet extend for you? What humanness?
Well, in a simple way, it's an extension of my arms.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And then I guess that is a kind of sonic dancing in a way,
Sonic dancing. I've never heard that. But what do you mainly like to play, vibes or marimba? Is there one you prefer over the other?
Not really, honestly. They're really kind of different beasts. And I've been playing, I would say I've spent more time on marimba. My career.
Okay, let's say the marimba. What humanness does that instrument extend for you?
Oh, well, it's the bars, they're wood. I mean, they're not always wood. Sometimes they're artificial, but when you're playing on a rosewood instrument, it's the bars,
But it's like, I'm saying the instrument extends some humanness.
Yeah, it extends. For me, it extends. It's like going into the woods.
Oh, going into the woods. That's
it extends this very, what I feel is a very, very foundational need for me to spend time in the woods. Yeah, and that is why if you made me choose between the marimba and the vibraphone, that wouldn't be a very nice choice to have to make, but I would choose the marimba because of the wood.
Because it's more earthy.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Well, and then your film, you're not carrying around a little marimba. You're carrying around mallets to hit all these logs that could have been made into a marimba. But have you ever heard this term biomimicry? So humans, we imitate, maybe what you're saying is the marimba sound might have been an imitation of the woodpecker.
Mm.
And so my thing is now I want to go into the function of music. My thing is, if McLuhan's right in Whitman and Joyce, they're saying we extend our humanness with these inventions, whether they're tangible or not, we extend our humanness. And like Marshall said, the most human thing is technology. But most people are like, oh, technology's ruined the world. No, that's how we extend ourselves. Yeah. And so it comes out of us. And so if humans look at, listen to birds and they go, oh, we can whistle too. My thing is that's biomimicry, but it could be reversed. The birds might have heard humans whistling and then imitated us.
Yeah.
How could you
Yeah.
ever prove that, I mean, yeah, they probably can say, well, there were birds around before humans, but you can't really prove that.
Right. Yeah. That's wonderful.
So, Patton, what do you think the function of music is?
Oh, well, huh, what? It's funny. You think I would have a ready answer for that?
Well,
After all these years.
I'm gonna list 16 that I've collected, but yeah, and you can react to each one, or you
I
can
mean,
just,
to me, it's like, music is like air and water. And okay, here's something. If you watch the full-length Sonic Divide film, there's an interview with Eric Funk, the composer from
yeah,
Montana, that shows up in there. And Eric said something so beautiful that I've never, ever forgotten. He said, and I won't get this quite right, but it's fairly close to what he said. He said, because I was asking, the film in a way is a question of, what this experimental music I'm making and this ultra distance mountain biking, like, what do they have in common and why do we do these things? That was
yeah,
partly what I was trying to explore. And Eric's response when I asked him that question was, he said, because creating things is just so deeply innate into the human experience. As soon as your basic Maslow's needs are met, you've got your shelter, your companionship, your food, your water, once your clothing, once all that's met, what is the first thing people do? They start drawing things, they start dancing, they start singing, they start telling stories. So when you ask me what is the function of music, that's a little bit, well, here's your answer. It's the function is it keeps us alive.
Oh, good. That's perfect.
In the same way that air and water and companionship. Because imagine if you make all those Maslow's needs and then you don't do any of these things. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
You're just going to sit there and stare at the wall. I don't know. What will you do? I guess, we have to do these things.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what's the point? What is the point of us being on this planet if we can't make music and other art too? I see them all as, related, but yeah.
They're all related. That's so well done. In fact, you hit pay dirt with one, but I want to tell you, do you know this story how Zappa was in church as a teenager and he saw the candle flame move when the choir sang? So the air from the choir made the flame move. And so he called music air molecule sculpting. You're sculpting air molecules.
Yeah.
So when you said air and water, that was beautiful. And so here, I'm going to run through a couple. What's the function of music? There is none. 2, John Cage said he learned from his teacher, like you, an Eastern philosophy teacher, to soothe the soul and make it susceptible for divine intervention.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That's a very, that concept comes up a lot in the Hindustani community.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ravi Shankar, when he was first touring in the Western world, he used to say that raga is that which colors the mind. And, that's kind of a soundbite explanation, but he knew what he was doing. He was trying to give people a very succinct intro into it. But yeah, the word raga comes from the Sanskrit word rung or runj, which basically means color. And yes, ragas color your mind, they color your heart, they color your emotions, all these things. But they also make you available to a divine influence, for sure.
Really good.
You know what? Sorry to interrupt you, but I did want to. You got me thinking. There's also in the Sonic Divide film a really nice interview, and this actually comes up very briefly in the trailer with Stuart Saunders Smith, who we unfortunately just lost a few years ago. But Stuart was also a really important mentor for me. I studied composition with him a bit and spent time with him, and I commissioned some pieces from him. But he was one of the composers on that project, and in the course of interviewing him, I asked him, what is the point of me going out in the wilderness and playing this music? And he said, because music is vibration and all living creatures react and interact with vibration. Yeah. And so that reminds me of what you mentioned with Zappa's quote.
Yeah. Vibrate. No, both of those little clips are in your trailer too. That's what's cool. And
Maybe that's why I remember.
yeah. So Payton, I asked for 90 minutes. It's 90 minutes. Can you go a little longer now, or you got to get going?
Let me see here. I could go maybe 5-10 more minutes. That's
okay. 5-10 more minutes. I really appreciate it. And I hope you'll agree to do a part 2 somewhere down the line, because we really didn't get into music. I have a whole thing. I really, these were all the philosophical questions, but I wanted to go through a couple of these other functions that I got. And the next one is similar to your instruments, is Mickey Hart from the Grateful Dead, is that music was invented as a warning system to survive better. They're coming to steal our food. You hit the logs and it informs your community.
Yeah.
Dylan Buston said it's to dance. Norman Zamchek said it keeps us from going insane.
Yeah.
And here's where you hit pay dirt with number 5, David Moss. Do you know this guy? A percussionist, and he's an experimental vocalist. Look him up if you don't.
No, I don't.
He said, music, the function of music is it's the sound of being alive.
Huh.
And then it's endless: entertainment, pleasure, nostalgia, creativity, connection, community, ceremony, ritual, learning, stir emotions. Then this other guy, Claire Fisher, his son, said self-awareness. The function of music is self-awareness. I think that that happens in your regard of being an improviser. How can you be an improviser without being self-aware or having some, it's like so many of these experimental musicians I've interviewed, they go, don't think. And I'm like, yeah, right. You got all this Rolodex of licks in your head. How are you going to not think and reference them?
Yeah. I don't know if I'd say I don't think, but I would say, like a few weeks ago, I was working with the trio I'm working with now, Nava Dunkelman and Aaron Rodgers. Man, that's a really deep experience. There's some real ESP going on there. It's a very tremendously high level of music making. But I think when I'm playing my best with that trio, it's so hard to put this stuff in words, but it's really, there's just a deep listening going on.
Yeah.
And the listening is helping guide what I do. It's not me trying to force things to move a certain direction or pulling out. I mean, I have all these, licks I can do in bags of tricks and stuff, but they may or may not be what's needed in the moment. And a lot of times when we play, most of the time I'll have all these stick trays with like 100 different mallets, a lot of which I built myself, because I'm always interested in trying to go for timbral exploration when needed. And I noticed when we performed a few weeks ago, there were like half the mallets I never touched.
Wow.
Because I didn't need them. Now I could have grabbed them just to grab them, just to show people, look at this weird, cool mallet I made. But that would have been about that. It wouldn't have been about what we were actually doing in the moment.
Yeah, that's what your podcast with Greg, you really guys, you stress that you got to learn how to lay out and not be ashamed to lay out and to go, oh my God, I should be filling something in here. Now, when you use that phrase deep listening, when you were referencing Pauline Oliveros, or you just put the adjective before listening as deep?
Well, I'm certainly aware of her work. So I wasn't referencing her, but it's that, it is deep listening.
Yeah.
Like a full immersion in listening. And especially when you're with many people, sometimes the very best thing to do is just listen and give people space.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually a question I bring up in part 2. That's really a deep dive into that. One more, there's actually 2 more I just want to touch on really fast when I inventoried these function of music. This one musician told me it's to hypnotize people to be themselves.
Huh.
Now, I don't know what that means, but does that resonate at all with you?
I think so. I mean, people choose music, they listen. Most people don't listen to everything. I do, but I'm also a professional, and I have a certain professional obligation, I feel like, especially in the role of education, to kind of be checking stuff out, even if I don't like it, or it doesn't really speak to me. But yeah, I mean, most people kind of zero in on certain genres, or even certain artists within a genre, and they'll put a lot of energy into listening to that. And yeah, I think that does help them kind of understand, I guess, who they are in a way.
Yeah, I loved how you went into Greg your love of metal, because I met Dan Carey at a jazz show, and I didn't know who he was, and we just started talking. And he goes, "Oh yeah, I'm a drummer." I goes, "Oh, who do you drum for?" And he goes, "Tool." I don't really know Tool. I kind of heard of them, but they're like been around for 30 years, and that was cool because you said you dropped all the right names, Xenakis, the Elvin Jones, and then you went into the metal guys. And I was just curious because, so many Zappa heads love Rush. And now is this true that they have a woman drummer in there? Did you see this?
Yeah. Yeah, no, she is ferocious, man.
Is she really?
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah, and I know there's been a bit of chatter, and some people are being a little dismissive, but that's just sexism, man. I'm telling you, this woman can play. You should check her out. Her name is Annika Niles. I can't forget. Just Google it; it'll come right up. Yeah, watch her play. You'll see what I mean.
Yeah,
yeah. That was a very good hire.
Yeah,
and not because she's a woman. That was a good hire because she can shred. I mean, she is and tastefully so. She is a great player.
And then I went into this whole dive into drone. Maybe you guys were talking about drone metal. I don't even know that genre, but it was like, wow. So here's the last one, Payton, and it's really been fun. Edgar Varese said the function of music is organizing sound, emphasizing timbre and rhythm over the traditional melody and harmonies, which is something I really wanted to delve into. And like part 2 with you is how Aaron Copland broke it down to melody, harmony, rhythm, and tone color. So what do you think of Varese saying organizing sound as the function of music?
Well, that definitely resonates a lot with me. And a lot of the work I've done on marimba, especially over the past 10 years or so, where I've been really kind of working to expand the timbral palette, is very much in the spirit of Varese, in the sense that, sure, melody and harmony and rhythm, those are all, obviously, they're foundational to music, but so is timbre, and so is just sound in and of itself. And that was one of the beautiful things about a lot of John Cage's work, is that, I first read Silence when I was 16, and it was such an epiphany, this idea that any sound is really interesting when you pay attention to it. And he kind of democratized this idea of sound, that there isn't necessarily good sounds and bad sounds. It just depends on the context. And so, yes, that very much resonates with me. And I'm very much enjoy listening to music that's quite timbrally based in terms of an organizational structure and approach. And a lot of the work I do with the trio, for example, with Nava and Aaron, the recordings we're making and concerts we're playing and such, is that, we will get into spaces where harmony and melody really are irrelevant. It's just not what we're doing at the moment. Yeah. It's almost entirely based on timbre. So yeah, I guess I would lean aesthetically in general, I would lean much more towards Varese than Copland. Copland wrote some very beautiful music, but he was also very traditional in a way. And some of the stories I've read, he was also a bit racist at times, and didn't really seem to understand what was happening with jazz and other forms of music. So to that sense, I don't feel much of a kinship with him,
Yeah. But there's one thing I wanted to ask you really in closing, is when he breaks it down to those 4 elements, there's more than those. But usually when I ask, I go melody, harmony, rhythm, and tone color. What's another word for tone color? How would you describe it without saying the word timbre, which is a more academic term? What is tone color in a non-academic explanation?
It's the color of the tone.
Right, but I get that, but that's putting an auditory event into it. It's called, actually, McLuhan called that sense ratio shifting. It's actually what Finnegan's Wake did, James Joyce. He turned an eye experience into an ear experience, because you have to read the book out loud, look at the words, but read it out loud with a group of people in order to get it. Yeah. And so, I mean, when you say it's also like being a filmmaker, they go, that film was poetic. And they don't go, well, that poem was cinematic, And so, well, what does poetic mean? But I mean, just a little more. What does the color of a tone mean? What does that mean? Because if color is visually oriented and we're talking an auditory experience.
Yeah, I see what you're asking. It's a really interesting question. It's a different kind of pressure on your ear.
Oh, that's good. Pressure on ear. Yeah. Pressure on the ear. That's good, because I just remembered my friend was obsessed with Badalamenti, the guy who did the music for David Lynch films.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he swore that the C note was red or blue. He said it was some color. And we saw Badalamenti at an art gallery, and we had talked to him about it. It was interesting. And the next day I went up to Zapp and I says, what color is the C note? And he goes, I don't know. Ask Rimsky-Korsakov.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is funny, because there are, blue note. I mean, we do assign colors to, well, it's called synesthesia also.
Yeah. But I guess what I mean is that, if you hear a clarinet play a note and you hear an oboe play the exact same pitch, it just feels different on your ear.
Yeah, feel.
It's like someone's kind of pushing on your ear in a different way. And that is, I mean, what is sound? It's air compressing and rarefacting, right? And then it interacts with our eardrum and sends a signal to our brain. So I guess I feel like it's just a different kind of pressure in a way.
Yeah. No, pressure and feeling was good. Thank you so much, Payton. It's really been fun. I learned a lot, and you're truly enlightening and inspiration to us all. So,
Gerry, so I feel the same way. Thank you for all of your work. And this was hands down one of the most enjoyable interviews I've ever done. So thank you so much.
Well, it's cool. It's maybe 5-6 months down the line, we can do part 2 and finally get into music and film.
Sure. I would love that.
Okay. Thanks, Payton. I'm going to hit the end broadcast button now, but I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever.
Me too. And if you're in this neck of the woods, let me know. We'll get
all right.
coffee.